Hi everybody, it's Kerry here at the North East Autism Society and I'm joined today by Tony and Danny from the Life Science Centre.
Hi.
Hello.
And today we're going to be doing an activity about life on Mars. So Danny, could you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, thank you. If you've seen any of our other videos, you'll know that we really love space. And this week is really important in space news because on the 18th of February, NASA's Perseverance rover will be landing on Mars to start its mission. It's going to be exploring, it's going to be looking for evidence that there might have once been living things on Mars, and it's going to investigate what we might need to do in order to send humans to Mars safely.
Ooh, how exciting.
That sounds super exciting.
Definitely. But if humans were going to live on Mars, there's a lot of things that we have to think about in order to make it safe.
Yeah, because I guess things like Mars is very cold, so you'd need to keep warm, and humans need to breathe oxygen, but there isn't as much oxygen in the atmosphere in Mars. And I guess we'd need to be able to grow our food as well. So I've seen drawings of kind of like Mars bases that are kind of all sealed, and so you're like in a bubble with all the things you need from Earth.
Exactly. So we need to kind of figure out how to do all those kind of things before we get to Mars. And so we can do experiments on Earth to kind of model those conditions and give us some idea of what we might need to do. And there's one that we can try for ourselves today. This is a terrarium.
Ooh.
It's a sealed jar with plants growing inside it. And it has everything inside it that the plants need in order to survive, just like a sealed up base on Mars would.
Ah, I see.
Shall we give it a go?
Yeah, can I make one?
Yeah, all right, let's see. What will we need? We'll need an empty jar with a lid.
Jar with a lid.
We'll need some soil.
Soil.
We'll need water.
Water.
I've got some pebbles, little rocks.
I don't have any pebbles. Would it be okay if I were to get some later on, perhaps when I go for a walk, and then put them back in the jar?
Definitely, yeah, that's all right. And finally, we'll need a spoon.
Spoon.
And the plant we're going to be using in our terrarium, and we're going for moss.
Oh yeah, I've got some moss just here.
There we go. Now with the moss and the pebbles and the soil, you might be able to get those from your garden, or you might get them from the nearest park if you were on a walk maybe.
You have to be careful though, Danny, if you're collecting moss, don't you? If you need to do it with an adult, that's important. And also keep your hands clean as well. Wash your hands after you've collected it.
Definitely. Okay, so we've got all our bits and pieces together. The first step to make it is to take our jar, and we're going to fill it about 1/3 of the way up with soil.
Okay.
So this is what the spoon might come in handy for, using it like a spade if you don't want to make too much of a mess, and also just to pat it down as well inside the jar so that you can get a good amount of soil in there.
There's a few roots and twigs in mine. Is that okay?
Oh, that should be all right, because it'll act as if it were real soil, because you'll have lots of bits and pieces of other plants that have died in there as well, and it'll kind of give nutrients to the new plants that will be growing there.
Which I guess is what we want, isn't it? Lots of nutrients for our moss to grow.
Definitely. And it's the same for growing plants on Mars too. Scientists have done experiments on Earth using simulated modeled conditions for what it would be like on Mars, and they've managed to grow some kinds of vegetables. They've managed to grow things like sweet potatoes and kale and some lettuces and things like that. So it sounds like future astronauts will be having a pretty healthy diet.
Yeah, there's some tasty food there. I love sweet potatoes.
Okay,
Does that moss smell, Tawny? Does the moss smell?
Oh, haven't tried out. Have a smell. It smells very earthy. It reminds me of the smell of the soil, actually.
Mm.
They're both quite damp smelling and smell. Yeah.
And it feels quite damp as well, because it feels like it's got a lot of water held in it.
Ah, it does. In fact, I can see the water when I press the moss. It comes off on my finger. It's like a sponge. It's soaked up the water, and then when you squeeze it a bit, the water comes out.
Yeah, and that's why moss is so good for this experiment, because it can hold quite a lot of water, and so it's good at kind of surviving in kind of damp places. Next up to our soil, we're going to add, if you have them, our pebbles, or even maybe like little bits of twig, things like that. These aren't important for the moss to survive, but they make your terrarium look nice, and also it could be somewhere for the moss to kind of spread to as well, because you often get moss on walls and rocks and things like that. So it's kind of giving it options for places it might want to live. So you've added your rocks, you've added your soil. Let's pop the moss on top of it.
So I guess I need to be careful to get the moss the right way up, don't I?
Definitely. And again, this is where the spoon might come in handy to flip it over if it ends up upside down, or kind of just gently poke it into the right part of your jar.
I like my moss. My moss has got lots of little bits growing up out of it, which is quite exciting.
In the one that I showed off earlier, some of my moss is like that, with the bits growing off it. But then I've also got another kind of moss that looks more like little leaves. So you do get lots and lots of different kinds of moss. So have a look around your garden or around the park and see what kind you can find and what kind you think will look nice in your terrarium.
I might have a look and see if I can find any other kinds when I go out walking today, and then add them in.
That's a good idea. All right, we have our moss and our soil and our pebbles, but we need to add some water, because all living things need water. And on Mars, there's a lot of frozen water in the form of ice trapped in the soil. So the astronauts would have to melt it first before they could use it. But on Earth, we can just use tap water.
Now, my soil's quite wet already, so I'm only going to add a tiny bit of water, because I don't want it to go really soggy and slushy and sticky mud.
That's a good idea. I'm adding a little bit more than that, because my soil looks a little bit dry. But yeah, you definitely don't want your soil to turn into mud. You want to add enough that it's damp, but not enough that it's all sludgy. This is probably the trickiest step, and you might need to come back to it in a few days or weeks if it looks like your moss is drying out, or if it's still really sludgy, and kind of play with the levels a bit. But once you get it right, it should be perfect, and the moss should use it, and it'll all kind of get recycled, and you get a nice little closed system going on. And once you've added your water, you can put the lid on, screw it on tight, and we'll be all done. You can then leave this on a windowsill, or you could put it on a desk or on a shelf, anywhere that'll get light. It doesn't need to be in direct sunlight, because moss, quite often you find it growing in more shaded places, like under rocks or logs and things like that. So as long as there's a bit of light in the room you're keeping it, it makes quite a nice decoration, and you can check in on it every so often and see how it's doing every day or so, and that'll help you know whether you need to maybe add a little bit more water or not. But the one I showed off previously, I made a few weeks ago, and it's still going well. It's looking healthy, so I think I might have got the balance just right in that one.
So that might be just the balance we need when we try and grow things on Mars.
Exactly. It's all about doing experiments now and trying things out, so that the astronauts of the future will be safe and healthy. And it's all very exciting. You know, the idea of sending people to Mars is exciting, but also the things that the Perseverance rover finds are pretty exciting. We don't know what those things are going to be yet, but I know I'm looking forward to finding out over the next few months and years as it's doing its exploring.
It will be really exciting.
It will be exciting. It'd be good if some of our young people could give their suggestions as well of what the rover might find on Mars. We'd like to hear from them, I think. But yeah, thank you for that activity, Tony and Danny. That was really interesting, and I think some of our young people might like that one. So as always, if you do try it out, then send us your photographs. You know, send us the progress that it's making as well. We'd love to see them. Okay, so
great.
we'll all be looking out for the exciting rover traveling on Mars. We'll be looking out for the updates, and really exciting. Okay then, so bye everybody, folks.
Bye.